she thought she was marrying love. Instead, she signed a contract with control. He stripped her of everything: her job, her voice, her worth. But what he didn't know was that the woman he tried to break was quietly sitting on millions and a plan.
Welcome to Infidelity Truths. Before we dive into today's gripping story, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more thrilling stories just for you. Let's begin.
Sierra Malone had always believed that love should be planted, watered, and nurtured, not negotiated like a business deal. At 42, she wasn't some naive romantic. She'd carved out a meaningful life for herself as a high school counselor in Raleigh, North Carolina. Her days were spent guiding teenagers through chaos, and her weekends were dedicated to serving at a local women's shelter where stories of survival and resilience filled the air like incense. Sierra believed that when love finally came, it would feel like peace, not paperwork. Then she met Langston Reed. He was 47, a polished tech consultant who had the kind of confidence that made rooms pause. Langston was magnetic, suave, and deeply articulate. He dressed like elegance had raised him, quoted Baldwin over dinner, and whispered affirmations to Sierra like it was second nature. Weekend trips to Charleston, jazz nights, handwritten notes tucked inside her planner. Langston did everything right. It wasn't rushed. It didn't feel like lust. It felt like alignment. After 2 years of shared sunsets, slow dancing in the kitchen, and whispered prayers at night, he proposed on a quiet hilltop overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains. Sierra said yes with her whole soul. Then, 3 days before the wedding, he handed her a prenuptial agreement. "It's just a formality," Langston said casually, barely looking up. "I've got a few assets, a couple of properties. You wouldn't understand, it's just cleaner this way." He said it like she was his assistant, not his partner. Sierra paused, her heart stuttering beneath her ribs. But she signed it, not because she agreed, but because she didn't want to seem like she was there for the money. She wasn't. What she wanted was what she had always prayed for: love that felt like home. But Langston's love had rules, and they changed without warning. Marriage peeled away Langston's charm, like paint on an old wall. The soft words faded. Slowly, Sierra began to see glimpses of a man who measured value in status, not substance. He critiqued her meals, said they lacked sophistication, unlike his ex's culinary skills. He suggested her natural curls were a bit too free-spirited and urged her to try something sleeker. At first, she brushed it off. But soon, her silence became her survival. The man who once sent roses to her classroom began making jokes about her salary. "You sure you're not just an education for the summers off?" he teased in front of friends. When Sierra offered to help pay for their new home, he laughed. "You can't cover a quarter of the down payment, babe. Relax." Still, she tried. She decorated their space with warmth, infused love into Sunday dinners, slipped notes in his shirt pockets. Langston never acknowledged them. He was too busy curating his image, hosting rooftop dinners for clients, and treating Sierra like a prop in a lifestyle shoot. Then came the suggestion more like an instruction. "You should leave your job," Langston said one September morning, sipping espresso like it was a ritual. "You don't need to work. Just enjoy the house. Find something more graceful." Sierra blinked. "Langston, I love my students. I'm not just working for money." He rolled his eyes. "Exactly. You're wasting your time." Against every instinct, she resigned that fall. The hallways she loved became memories. She traded her purpose for silence. She told herself it was compromise, but deep down, it felt like erasure. The second shift came subtly. One morning, she checked their joint bank account and saw her name had been quietly removed. "It's just for tax purposes," Langston waved off. "It's simpler this way. I've got you." Sierra nodded, but cried alone in their guest bathroom, a space that had begun to feel more like hers than their shared bedroom. She wondered if love was supposed to feel like vanishing. Weeks bled into months. Sierra became a shell of herself. Langston's gaslighting turned cruel. "You're so emotional. You take everything personally. Why do you always play the victim?" On her 43rd birthday, he forgot. At midnight, when she gently reminded him, he scoffed. "You're not really upset about a cake, are you?" That night, Sierra wrote in her journal, Dear woman who's fading, how much longer will you pretend this is love? The breaking point came one ordinary Tuesday morning. Langston zipped up a gym bag and said, I need space. Don't make this dramatic. Then he left. No explanation. No timeline. Just silence. Sierra sat on their couch for 3 days, unsure if she was a wife or a ghost. When he returned, his voice was cold. I think you should go stay with your sister. It's just better. She whispered. This is my home too. He smirked. Not legally. Remember the prenup? You don't own anything here. You're a guest. He watched her pack with a glass of wine in his hand, commented on her suitcase like he was tipping hotel staff. Sierra left with a single duffel bag, a cracked phone, and nowhere to go. Her sister lived in D.C., but pride held her back. She checked into a motel across town. For weeks, she disappeared phone on Do Not Disturb. She took temp jobs at nearby schools under her mother's maiden name. Langston never called. One day, she passed a boarded-up storefront near downtown. Something in her spirit stirred. It had tall windows, chipped paint, and quiet potential. She jotted down the realtor's number. That night, Sierra sat in her motel room and opened a sealed envelope she had avoided for 13 years. Her grandmother, Nina Malone, a nurse and civil rights activist, had left her a trust. You will access this only when you need it, not when you want it. Sierra's hands trembled. $4.2 million. She didn't scream, didn't even smile. She just sat there, broken body, rich in silence, drenched in a power she'd forgotten she had. Langston had mistaken her grace for weakness. Sierra called a lawyer. Black, sharp, female. I don't want revenge, she said. Just my peace, and my name back. The lawyer nodded. The prenup holds, but emotional abuse and financial manipulation don't. Sierra settled quietly. Took nothing. Said nothing. She was done proving her worth. Instead, she bought that old boutique space and called it Malone and Muse. It sold handmade furniture, indie black literature, ethically sourced skincare, and featured a quiet reading nook for women who needed somewhere to land. She held workshops, hosted healing circles, and adopted a rescued greyhound named Biscuit. People found the shop like it was fate. They didn't just buy things, they exhaled. Sierra became Miss Malone, the woman with soft eyes and a spine of steel. She never told her story. She didn't need to. One evening, she bumped into one of Langston's old friends at a downtown poetry night. You still with Langston? He asked casually. Sierra smiled. Number. Man, heard he got played by some chick. She cleaned him out, took the Benz, racked up debt, even stole his clients. Sierra sipped her tea, her face serene. Hope he's well. She never checked his socials, but one day, Langston showed up. Outdated jacket, dark circles under his eyes. I was just in the area. Sierra nodded. How can I help you? You look peaceful, he said. I am, she replied. I made mistakes, he murmured. Sierra stepped back. So did I, but mine ended with leaving. Yours started with staying. He blinked. Can we talk? She smiled. We are, and now we're done. Langston left without a hug, a tear, or a second glance. That night, Sierra sat on her porch wind chimes singing in the breeze, Biscuit at her feet, journal in her lap, the same porch she used to cry on. Now, she simply breathed. Not bitter. Not broken. Just still. Langston would never know that the woman he'd tried to erase was always holding a legacy, that the moment he served her divorce papers, she had already purchased her store in full, that the prenup meant nothing next to her grandmother's foresight, that she could have destroyed him publicly, but instead, she chose grace and growth. Sierra Malone never went viral. She didn't post affirmations with filtered sunsets or sell courses on healing. She just rebuilt her life soft, firm, and rooted. She became her own salvation. And the loudest echo in Langston's life would always be the silence of the woman who walked away without raising her voice, only raising her life. 3 years had passed since Sierra Malone walked away from Langston Reed with nothing but her dignity, a duffel bag, and her grandmother's wisdom tucked in her heart. Now, the woman who once cried into motel pillows had become a quiet force in the city, a name that echoed in spaces her ex would never be invited into. Malone and Muse had bloomed. It wasn't just a boutique, it had become a haven. Women from all walks of life gathered there. Recent divorcees, single mothers, artists, survivors, and young girls who just needed someone to look them in the eye and say, "You matter." Sierra wasn't a therapist, but she listened like one. She wasn't a preacher, but her calm, steady presence brought healing like scripture. But despite all her peace, something still tugged at her heart, not regret, not bitterness, just unfinished business. Not with Langston, but with herself. One evening, as Sierra was closing up the shop, a delivery man dropped off a small, elegant envelope. Inside it was an invitation. Langston Reed, guest speaker at the Raleigh Black Excellence Gala. The gala was a major event, filled with the city's top entrepreneurs, community leaders, and elite. Langston was scheduled to speak on building strong financial foundations in Black marriages. Sierra almost laughed. The irony was bitter. The man who stripped her of her finances, voice, and power was now preaching about protection and partnership? The same man who used a prenup like a muzzle? She tossed the envelope aside until a familiar voice echoed in her memory. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight it by becoming one hell of a light. Her grandmother's words. So Sierra bought a ticket, not out of revenge, but as a statement to herself. I am no longer the woman you buried. The night of the gala, Sierra stepped into the grand hall in a floor-length emerald green gown that kissed every curve and radiated quiet power. Her curls were free, her stride confident. She wore no husband's name, no designer's label, just the presence of a woman who had rebuilt herself with her bare hands. Langston was already at the podium, charming the room as usual. He caught her eye. His words faltered just for a second. That was all she needed. After his speech, Sierra mingled, not to be seen, but to be felt. She spoke with mayors, organizers, young women launching nonprofits. Everyone gravitated toward her warmth, her stillness. She didn't need a spotlight, it followed her naturally now. Later that night, Langston approached. Sierra, he breathed, you look incredible. Thank you, she replied calmly, sipping her water. He hesitated. I've been keeping up. Your store, it's everywhere. She smiled softly. It's doing well. I wish I had supported you more, he said. Maybe things would have been different. Sierra tilted her head. Maybe. But you didn't. And I'm grateful. Langston looked confused. Grateful? Yes. Because if you hadn't tried to silence me, I wouldn't have remembered how loud my own soul was. If you hadn't made me feel small, I wouldn't have discovered how vast I really am. He looked down. I lost something good, he whispered. Sierra didn't agree, didn't disagree, just offered him grace. You lost something growing, she said. You tried to control it instead of watering it. Then she smiled, not cruelly, but like a woman who had nothing left to prove. I hope you find your healing, she said, turning to leave. Sierra. She paused. If I ever wanted to, talk, just as friends. She turned fully now, her expression kind but unshakable. Langston, I've forgiven you, truly, but I don't revisit old fires. I plant new gardens. And with that, she walked away. Not hurried, not proud, just free. Outside, the city was alive, horns, wind, voices. Sierra stepped into her car, rolled down the windows, and let the night air kiss her cheeks. As she drove past their old neighborhood, she didn't flinch. She didn't look. She just smiled. In her rear view, a past version of herself faded small, afraid, unsure. And ahead? A new storefront space she had just purchased downtown. A second location. But this one? It would be called Malone Legacy Housé Resource Center for women restarting their lives after financial abuse and toxic marriages. Because Sierra hadn't just survived. She had planted something that would outlive her. And that, my friends, is how a woman reclaims her story. Not with vengeance, but with vision. If Sierra's journey inspired you, drop a comment below. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs a reminder of their power. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss another story of truth, healing, and transformation.